It was immediately apparent to them what they were witnessing when they saw it, a boot liquefying from the ice. As they approached, they could see that the sole was bracketed and studded with the diamond-patterned steel hobnails of a bygone period of climbing, and the cracked leather looked ancient and worn. Against the backdrop of Mount Everest's north face in September, a National Geographic filming team led by documentary filmmaker and photographer Jimmy Chin looked more closely at the boot, as did climbers and filmmakers Eric Rupke and Mark Fisher. They found a foot inside, remains they knew at once belonged to Andrew Coleman Irvine, sometimes known as Sandy. On June 8, 1924, Irvine and Mallory vanished from sight while attempting to become the first humans to summit the highest mountain in the world. The biggest climbing mystery of all time has persisted as to whether or not they had reached the peak. In the event that Irvine and Mallory were successful, it would have taken them approximately 29 years to reach the summit of Everest, ahead of Tenzing Norgay and Edmund Hillary. In 1999, Mallory's remains were found, but Irvine's whereabouts remained a mystery. Chin describes the finding as the first real evidence of where Sandy ended up. Numerous hypotheses have been who disappeared a century ago with renowned climber George Mallory. Chin describes the incident as follows. I lifted up the sock, and there's a red label that has A.C. Irvine stitched into it. Chin claims that he understood the moment's significance, as did his friends. Collectively, everyone was genuinely circling around and hurling expletives. Released into the public eye, he thinks the finding provides some closure to Irvine's surviving family members, who still hold him in high regard, and sheds light on what transpired on the mountain in 1924. It can be very difficult for families when there is no indication of what happened to a missing person. Furthermore, knowing with certainty where Sandy might have ended up is undoubtedly useful and provides a significant hint to the climbing community as to what transpired. Chin called Julie Summers, 64, Irvine's great-niece, one of the first people to learn of the news. Summers wrote a biography of Irvine in 2001 and has long supported his efforts to mountaineering. She expressed gratitude for the update. She describes the boot as an object that belonged to him and has a bit of him in it. It provides a complete account of what most likely occurred. Summers believes that the glacier's movement crushed the remains after avalanches carried them down the mountain. That seems like something that is almost resolved to me. Family members have offered to provide DNA samples so that they can be compared with the remains to confirm their personal identity. As part of the Mallory and Irvine research expedition, which aimed to determine if the two had in fact reached the summit, alpinist Conrad Anker discovered Mallory's body in 1999. Summers remarked that this discovery brought back memories of that event. Anker concluded that Mallory and Irvine were bound together in their last moments after examining his remains and seeing the kind of deep rope scars that would represent a fall that was stopped by a rope wound around his waist. Anker stated in The Lost Explorer, I knew at once that he'd been tied to his partner and that he'd taken a long fall. Alongside David Roberts, Mallory's left leg, which was unharmed, was gently placed over his severely fractured right leg, suggesting that he did not pass away instantly in the fall. Since he carried his black snow goggles in his pocket, there was conjecture that the fall might have happened in the twilight while the two were descending. Mallory did not have the picture of his wife with him that he had intended to leave at the top. Today, October 11th, Dorothy Dottie Leonard Miller, co-founder of Billy Blue Records, founder and CEO of Daewin Music Group and New Day Christian Distributors, passed away. She was 79. A member of both the Gospel Music Hall of Fame and the Southern Gospel Music Hall of Fame, Miller has collaborated with musicians and songwriters who have won numerous awards, Singing News Fan Awards and BMI Christian Music Awards. Accolades, more than 125 number one hits, 1 Grammy Award and Grammy nominations. Miller, who was raised in Wilmington, Delaware, didn't find her career passion until much later in life. She acquired business knowledge while working as a single mother in Hendersonville, Tennessee, raising 2 children. She did this by working as a secretary at accounting and law firms, selling Jermac hair products in sales, and using her political acumen to work for the Democratic Party of Tennessee on campaigns for Senator Jim Sasser, President Jimmy Carter, and other candidates. To make ends meet, she also had a second job at Hendersonville Hospital working in ER admissions. She entered the music business when, on a whim, she applied for a receptionist job at Nashville's Calvary Records. Later, she promoted gospel musicians like the Hinsons, the Telestials, and others by working with radio stations and Christian bookstores. In 1981, following a year working for Winchim Records, Miller founded New Day Christian Distributors. Her garage served as the company's headquarters, and its first concentration was on independent artists' records and sheet music. Similar to Jimmy Swaggart and Mike Adkins, labels and independent Christian music artists grew to rely on New Day Christian Distributors as their one-stop shop. Miller and her friend and former Winchim employer, Ronnie Drake, founded Daywind Soundtracks after Miller realized she needed a product of her own. Christian and gospel singers from all over the world could now find music from Daywind Soundtracks to perform at church. Later, the Cumberland Boys were the first artists signed to Daywind Records, which Miller and Drake founded. Top gospel performers from the previous 35 years, such as Greater Vision, the Crabb Family, Gold City, and Karen, have been recorded by the label. Southbound, Lefevre Quartet, The Sound, High Road, Michael English, True Song, Legacy 5, Peck and New River, Brian Free and Assurance, Triumphant Quartet, Down East Boys, The Perrys, The Hoppers, Tribute Quartet. May 9th, 1948 to April 15th, 2023. We regret to inform you of Mario Frederick Mora's unexpected death on Saturday, April 15th, 2023 at his residence. His parents, Anthony and Ida Mora, predeceased him. Jamie, Tracy, and Jocelyn, Jim, his children, will all sincerely miss and cherish him. His grandchildren, Tyler, Oliver, Megan, Dylan, Emma, and Cameron, will deeply miss him. With affection. His nieces and nephews, as well as his brothers Michael, Sharon, and Anthony, Sheila, will never forget him. The vacuum Mario leaves in his children's lives is immense. Even though he was occasionally obstinate and unyielding, he was also generous, witty, and would sacrifice anything for his kids and grandkids, whom he felt the most sense of pride in. His family and friends will always miss his unending love and sense of humor. On May 9th, 2023, which would have been his 75th birthday, there will be a celebration of life held at the Newmarket Inn Conference Center, 18677 Yonge Street, Holland Landing, Ontario. The hotel is located in front of the property. To access the conference center and parking, drive around to the back of the hotel. Between 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock. Donations in remembrance may be sent to Diabetes Canada or the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Canada, if preferred. Entrusted to Taylor Funeral Home are the arrangements. John Mora made an easy choice, either pick up left-handed pool techniques or give it up. But getting back to the top hasn't been an easy feat. Written by Peter Warren. John Mora couldn't recall the precise day or the competition he had just participated in, but he can clearly recall his emotions when he declared that enough was enough. It was the beginning of 2018. Mora had been born in 1928. He has been playing pool for almost 10 years at a world-class level. However, the native of Toronto was exhausted. Mora had been suffering from pain in his right trapezius muscle, extending down to his shoulder, for years. The discomfort had begun mildly and had continued to grow over the years. His constant suffering took a toll on his mood. He was in discomfort all the time, which affected his play. He was continually in agony, so his passion of the sport disappeared like a pond in the desert. He claimed that the idea of giving up and exiting the tour had been bothering him for years. But he declared he was done as he drove away from this forgotten tournament. Though not a happy decision, it was the right one. Letting go of his pool life did not bring about any cathartic catharsis. Along the journey, Knowing that the discomfort in his right shoulder would eventually go away didn't make him feel any lighter. No, John Mora was just depressed. I believe it was the day or the day after, I'm not sure, but I was crying uncontrollably in my room the moment I decided to give up. I guess I knew at that point. Mora recalls I was a disaster.